Hi there, Carpoolers. Welcome to another episode of Carpool. Every week I give someone interesting a lift and we have a little conversation. And today, my guest today is an incredibly successful TV producer. And the whole reason that I was on the BBC television show Red Dwarf is down to him. So please welcome into the passenger chair, Mr. Paul Jackson. Sorry about that.
That's fine. How are you?
Very good, really good to see you.
Shall I turn this off?
Oh yeah, oh yes.
Interfere with
and me
things,
too. Oh God, I've forgotten to do that.
You have three cameras.
Three cameras.
Which you then go all recording in the camera, and then you go back and edit.
Yes. And then if I do that, gosh, that makes life easier.
Oh God, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. God, you're a real pro here.
Well, you're about my 55th. You'd think I'd be more organised. 55th.
I bumped into Stephen Fry the day you asked me to do it. And I said, because I'd watched his, obviously.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, he's so nice, Robert. He makes it so easy. It's a pleasure to do. He said, you'll really enjoy it.
Oh, good. Well, it was wonderful with you. You did it, But actually, it was also, my ambition always was to give people an actual lift they needed.
Well,
which is for you, isn't it? And it was for him, and that was really good. And most of them are, but occasionally
you drive around.
I just kind of go around in an interesting circle, which is fair enough. But I've also, the other thing I do is because I use Twitter, and I've asked people, I put a link to your Wikipedia page,
right,
and said what do you
Oh, what do you want to ask?
And what do you want to ask? Which
I hate my
interesting.
Wikipedia page. I mean, I should be more.
But you can't do anything about it, can you?
Well,
I mean, I've never.
In the early days, you could.
You could change
then
it.
Whoever written it in the first place, presumably having bothered to write a load of inaccurate scurrilous stuff, comes back and rewrites it when he corrects it. So I thought, do you know how conceited does it look like?
Yes. Yeah.
I never Google myself, Robert. I never. And then somebody said, "Oh, you should look at yourself." I think somebody said to me, "Your Wikipedia page is a bit snotty."
It's a little bit pokey, isn't it? I mean, it lists the main important, because everyone's then said, "Oh, it's the guy who's made all my favourite TV shows," so which is very nice, So that's what they've got from it, which is good.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
But it is a little bit snippy. And then I thought, do you know what? Why
you can't
bother? And it'll only get changed again.
Yeah,
so, I mean, I did actually go on Twitter,
right,
for a time, because I thought, hang on, this is different. This is more interesting, and it's actually linking you to different thoughts and different people and so on. But 99% of what's on Twitter is literally I went for a coffee and I can see the value of Twitter.
Yeah.
But then I found myself. Literally, I went to see Van Morrison tonight. Isn't it extraordinary? How, and I thought, what the fuck am I doing this? Nobody cares.
Oh, what you were saying?
Yes, I would then. I think, well, I better.
But you went to Van Morrison.
I haven't tweeted for a day, 24 hours. What? Oh, I'm going to Van Morrison. No, that's fantastic. Isn't it amazing how went with the mate, had a curry, watched Van Morrison. We could have been in the 60s, and I thought, nobody cares that. Just let's.
Yeah. It is a very different. Well, I mean, that's one of the real reasons apart from the fact that you completely ruined my life by forcing me into Red Dwarf.
Forcing you into that costume.
Well, that's one of the things I remember. I suddenly chuckled on the motorway today, out of the blue, and if anyone was watching, I think I was a nutter, but I suddenly remembered the particular night at a Red Dwarf recording, and you were there. It was a long time ago in Shepperton, and I came out, and it was a good gig, very, very hot, and you gave me a big hug, and you said, "I've read the small print, there's no get-out clause." Do you remember that? Because, I was there dripping in
you were dripping.
Some vile, stinking vest with a rubber head on.
When whenever we were, in the studio, even in the winter, but you were, after a performance, you must have lost weight.
No, because then I went out for a curry with Craig.
You say you went for a curry
at midnight.
Yeah.
And then I had to get up at 6.
I've just done a week in Edinburgh, so
oh, God, have you? Oh, wow.
Guinness and curry at midnight, it's not where you want to be, is it, really?
I'm impressed. Was it good this year?
Do you know what? It was one of the best in, I would say, the last 4 or 5 years. This was some really interesting new things. The Assembly Rooms guys and the Pleasance guys are saying it was 12-15% up.
Wow.
On last year.
Wow.
I think a lot of the really tiny little schoolrooms and back ends of pubs weren't there this year.
Right. So you think there were less?
I think there were probably. My guess was, Robert, wandering around, there were less shows, but the ones that were there were good. And actually a lot more Europeans, because it's always been an English language festival, really. Yeah. The Fringe. Yeah. Americans, Canadians, Australians. Yeah. But there were a lot more foreign accents in the queue and listening and. Wow. And some good stuff, actually. I enjoyed it this year.
That's one of the things, I've certainly noticed on a very personal level is the slight change in, the well-being of the British television industry. It's very different.
It's very different.
Even in the last 18 months.
I think particularly in the last 18 months, it's changed really quickly. Money's so tight and makes people risk averse, and this climate of the level of worry about every single move you make. You know, the BBC suddenly opened itself up to public scrutiny in an unprecedented way, and suddenly you've got, you know, people are afraid of their shadows, and when money's tight, it's always more fearful anyway. And I think it's I don't think we're in the best of times at the moment.
No, it is very difficult. But then on the other hand, there is sort of weird and not necessarily, you know, well, there's, you know, there's other opportunities that have opened up. I mean, the technology, there's jumps in technology, and
extraordinary.
I mean, you know, it just, even I think back to when you saw me in Edinburgh, which is like 21 years ago.
How long
rub it in?
have you been?
I'm afraid. I don't want to remember that. But you know, the idea then of even making a sort of, you know, it was the sort of thing we discussed, I think, making a VHS tape.
Oh, to send out?
Yeah, like 3. You would make 3 copies. It would cost you a lot of money, and you know, it wouldn't be very good. But, you know, it was something we actually did discuss then. But the idea of, 1, making a TV show, and 2, broadcasting it.
So there are other things opening up. I just think broadcast television as we know it is...
Well, I mean, and it does also the thing of, you know, trying to do something that, you know, essentially takes time and money, as in comedy and drama. You know, that, you know, yes, I can do this on the internet because the costs are so small and so contained and all that. And it might or might not be good, you know, but in terms of actually doing a scripted, wonderfully developed, carefully nurtured...
Takes time and money.
Takes time and money. There's no way around it, is there? I mean...
And that's why, of course, those genre are suffering at the moment. You know, I mean, you're not seeing a lot of new comedy commissioned.
No, well, I guess not. I mean, the things that I've been very aware of are Outnumbered and The In-Betweeners.
I mean, both of those are wonderful shows.
And they've both come out in the last couple of years.
Yes, they have,
but
absolutely.
Actually, they would probably been commissioned 3 years ago, when you think about it, wouldn't they? I mean...
It's Outnumbered in its 3rd series now, and In-Betweeners has just finished its 2nd, so... they must have been commissioned through, probably, I mean, pretty definitely, I would say, commissioned before the real financial squeeze came on. Not to say that they wouldn't get commissioned now, but you just wonder. I think comedy's always been hard, and there's a high failure rate. You try shows and they don't work, and I'm not sure how, whether people can afford to do that, and whether they've got the mindset to want to do it either. You know, people don't.
Because I mean, there's also going to be lots of people watching this who are interested in, you know, in Red Dwarf, but because of your involvement in the early days. Because I mean, that was not an overnight instant. You know, every broadcaster read about, we want Red Dwarf. No, we do. No, they weren't fighting over it.
No, we got it in on the back of a deal. It was known. We shot Happy Families, which has actually never been seen again. We shot a script that Ben Elton had written. Ben was at the height of his
Happy Families, though.
Well, Ben was at the height of his post-Young Ones. Yes, he went out.
Yeah.
And he'd written a script. He'd been sitting at home one rainy afternoon watching Kind Hearts and Coronets, the Alec Guinness movie. And he thought to himself, very Ben at the time, why shouldn't a woman get the chance to do a comedy like this? Particularly Emma Thompson. So he wrote this series of 6 half-hours for Emma to play 5 characters, 4 daughters, granddaughters, and the granny.
Right.
And it was a kind of murder mystery where the family had to all be brought together. Very redolent of Kind Hearts and Coronets. And then Emma got the lead in Me and My Girl on stage, so she wasn't available, and we asked Jennifer Saunders to do it.
Right.
So Jen played these 5 characters extremely well, I have to say, and each episode really was the set-up episode, then the 4 stories of the 4 girls, and Adrian Edmondson as the brother going around to collect them all back, and one was in a convent, one was in a prison, one was a star in Hollywood. Brought them all back for the reading of the will, and then we had the wonderful 2 days where we shot Jennifer in 5-way, in the old-fashioned way, in the camera. So we ran the film through the camera 5 times over, layering it and layering it. It was a fantastic thing to do. Anyway, we did that show, and the guy who ran Manchester at the time, a lovely bloke called Peter Ridsdale Scott,
I remember.
he got this comedy up there. He's got a nice big comedy up there, and he wasn't about to lose it. And this was still in the days where the BBC you could put markers down. So before we'd even shot Happy Families, he put Ben Elton Project 2 for the next summer.
Wow!
And of course, it was a closed-end thing. I mean, they all died. Happy Families was completely closed. It was never going to be Happy Families 2. But he said, no, we'll keep it there. We'll keep it there. And then we couldn't get Red Dwarf away in London, and Rob and Doug had tried to get it away elsewhere, and I tried to get it away, and we couldn't. So I took it to Peter and said, you know, what about that pot of money you got there, Peter? And that's how we made it. So I got it in.
Wow. So it's all down to Ben Elton. I've got to carpool Ben Elton and thank him.
It is Ben Elton. Red Dwarf was originally gave birth as a project called Ben Elton Series 2.
I didn't know that. That is interesting. No. What was your role in the Young Ones? Because I know that was your. I always think of that as your show.
That was my first sort of solo show. I did the normal BBC things. I did Generation Game and Top of the Pops and Blankety Blank and so on. But most important, I did the Two Ronnies. So I started as a runner on the Two Ronnies.
Wow, did you?
Literally as a call boy. My first job. They were called call boys then, not runners.
Call boys.
They literally we were called call boys, and there were no women. Because obviously they would have been called call girls, and that wasn't allowed. And people would say that as a serious. That would be seriously given as a reason.
We can't employ women.
Can't employ women. A, because they'd be called call girls, and B, because they'd have to go into gentlemen's dressing rooms and knock on the door to check, and that could be embarrassing. But that obviously changed. And I started as a call boy and worked up and ended up as the producer-director on it. And then I saw the boys in the clubs, you know, the early Comedy Store and so on. And did so I produced all 12 and I directed 10 of them. Jeff Posner directed 2 of them with me because it was just so manic. There were big shows to direct. You know? And in the
actually
first
quite a lot of effectively special effects, weren't there?
A lot. And again, back in those early days where if you wanted to do a blue screen or something, you literally, you had these big old 2-inch tape, 2-inch tape, big tape reels like this. It took a long time. We spent, in fact, it was Jeff's show, but he and I both were agonised that we spent a whole afternoon, 3 or 4 hours of studio time, shooting a sequence where the boys have chucked the dirty plates in the sink. You know, they're just stacked up in the sink, and a chip gets up and dances with a carrot, and takes her or carries her off into the sunset. And we spent an afternoon doing that. It's about 5 seconds on screen. And I must admit, I did. You do what you don't want to do. You learn not to do that. And in a way, the whole point about Young Ones, the reason I loved the Young Ones script when I first read it was because they didn't know what they couldn't do. They didn't know that you shouldn't write that because it would take an afternoon. And
so was that people in chip and carrot costumes dancing?
Yes, in that particular one we did it by putting people in chip and carrot costume and green screening them against a pile of dishes that were actually in the sink in situ in the set. But that's an incredibly inefficient way of doing it, basically. And
now you get, my son could do it on his laptop, and it would be brilliant.
Photoshop, you do it.
Yeah, it is extraordinary, isn't it, how that's... We shouldn't, I don't want to be too old dufferish going, in my day, we had to have real carrots.
I'm not being old, quite the reverse, in fact, because isn't it fantastic that you can now do what you can do with Red Dwarf or... you look at series like 24 or... just the way you get... filmic quality and filmic sound on a domestic television now, and of course we've now got the sets to match, so you seriously can sit back and watch, and I think that's part of the reason why people do go and buy box sets of 24 or Prison Break or Lost or whatever it is, because it's not like just watching on your VHS, it is actually a proper experience.
Yeah, absolutely. But then your career, you've had a brilliantly amazing... I've sort of vaguely followed where you've been, very hazily.
I've ducked and dived.
You ducked and dived, but because I do remember coming to see you at the BBC when you were... What were you...
I was controller of entertainment and comedy.
Yeah, wow.
And then I was that same job at ITV, but about 6 years later I was...
Right. So, I remember seeing you. Then I see you. It's sort of every now and then,
then in Australia, we
that's right.
In Australia. Right?
That was wonderful. That was lovely.
When I was down there.
Yeah, my missus is there at the moment. She wrote a book which was picked up at that time.
Oh right, okay.
So a publisher picked it up when we were in Australia.
Just been published now, gone.
And it's been published. It was published in 2002, and then the film rights were bought that year. And they're now shooting the movie as
an Australian movie
in Australia. Australian movie starring Charlotte Gainsbourg. I know.
Excuse me.
I know. Because when she downplays, I would say too much.
Right.
How
successful it is.
Yeah. So she went, they're shooting, because it's...
Charlotte Gainsbourg.
Yeah. And I went, Charlotte Gainsbourg. I went completely doolally when she told me about Charlotte Gainsbourg. Which is pretty amazing. And I've seen the photographs of the set, which is just staggering.
So what's the story, Robert?
But the book's called Our Father Who Art in a Tree, and it's about a family who've lost the father with young children.
And they tell him...
then the little girl hears him talking. You never see it. It's not a ghost from the tree. So it's sort of a ghost story. It's all about loss and grief and redemption, Short, beautiful, poetic, very beautifully written, but with very funny dialogue. Judy's dialogue's very down to earth. So instead of it being, like magic realism with all the you know, they're actually a bunch of Aussie dags. You know, just sort of.
You've got to admire the Aussie film industry. I mean,
Isn't it amazing? There is a film industry. They make films.
The country, 20 million people.
Yeah.
They make successful films.
Yeah.
They make quite a lot of them, actually.
Yeah.
And they make them bloody well.
Yeah. No, it's very. So she's going out to the film set tomorrow, I think, for the first time.
Oh God, congratulations!
So it's all very.
Tell you honestly, Rob, I honestly think if Australia were 4 hours flight from either America or Europe,
Yeah.
they would have this. I mean, they've got fairly tough immigration laws,
Yes.
but they would. I mean, because everybody would want to live there.
Yeah,
It is
yeah.
just the most fabulous country in the world. It's just so bloody far away.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I'm really not doing very well at the moment.
No, I have actually now got no idea where we are.
I do know where we are, but it's not the right place.
We'll,
I'm trying to head that way, and it keeps pushing me around this way. You know, lots of the questions I got asked were about what about downloading and illegal downloading and BitTorrent and iPlayer availability. There's lots of Americans want to watch BBC stuff legally, and then why can't we have the iPlayer? In the same way as lots of people here want Hulu, which I think is being introduced.
I think Hulu. The word is that ITV are talking to them at the moment,
Right.
and there'll be a deal, which is in itself quite interesting because the government having trodden all over Canvas and Kangaroo and anything else that anybody over here came.
Oh, because I remember I've just realised I'd forgotten about those because I remember hearing those like that.
Competition committee, no, can't do that.
Can't do it.
Why don't we just let Disney and ABC and Fox come in?
There's some big multinational companies.
And I think that's what's going to happen. I think you're going to now have if you like, the iTunes for video, you know, for TV, which is what Hulu in simplistic terms is. You're going to have that, but it'll be owned by 3 huge American media corporations.
Wow. Well, it could have been an independent.
But it could have been a BBC ITV Channel 4 thing, which is what both Kangaroo and Canvas could have been.
I didn't realise that had been stymied by government intervention.
The competition committee sat on Kangaroo.
Right.
And you go round there now.
Okay.
And then I think I'm right in saying the Trust, BBC Trust, I think, halted Canvas, which was actually only a platform. I mean, Kangaroo was Hulu. It was an actual
a bit of software, effectively.
A bit of software, but with the programming involved. You know, it was program producers getting together to supply their programming in an iPlayer type way through an entity.
Yeah.
Whereas Canvas, and I'm not good on this stuff, but where Canvas, as I understand it, was literally just the platform. It was just the technical base, and you could put anything on.
Right.
And but still, that was too much of a.
Right.
But you know, you can understand. I mean, I have some sympathy with the Murdoch argument on Friday, to the extent that the BBC's undue influence over the market,
well, particularly on the internet, it is very difficult.
And you know. If you can say anything about John Burt's time at the BBC, the thing you have to give him credit for is the extraordinary foresight that he had in making sure the BBC got there and became a world player, which it quite clearly is in the internet. But it's the unintended impact of that on regional news, on regional papers, on other small providers of. It is such a dominant figure on the global landscape, never mind the UK landscape. And of course, it is from subsidised money. All that's from what drives it, exactly as you say. Americans want to watch BBC television programs, which have been paid for by the BBC license payer, who doesn't get any benefit when American watches it. So how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, it's a Pandora's box, isn't it? Because when it first appeared, you just go, I always hear an American voice. Oh my God, we can get video on the internet. And then you go, oh, brilliant, how wonderful. And then you go, oh, hang on.
When I'm in LA or in Australia, it makes me furious. I can't watch the sport. I go to watch the England Wales rugby or whatever. No, of course you can't. And in fact, the radio. What I do love about it, I'm sure you must do it yourself. I sit in my office in Los Angeles with Radio 4 on.
Yes, I used to do that all the time.
I do just. Turn the computer on, put Radio 4 on, and then I get on with my business.
Yes, you can get that.
Fantastic.
Really
you can get radio.
Yeah.
They don't block the radio.
No.
But I've got some sympathy with the fact that you can't, if you're not a license payer, you can't do that because that seems a bit unfair.
Yeah. But then that's it. That's a chaotic thing that hasn't happened for a while. I'm keeping that shot in.
You got no cutaway there.
Yeah, don't say anything contentious for a minute. Oh, that is annoying. It's typical. Well, maybe that's a sign.
Maybe that's a sign that we've come to the natural conclusion.
I'll go down.
There's more speed bumps on this road than
I think you can poke a stick out. Oh, well, we'll go around it.
It's people, the whole Perrier comedy Nestle thing. You know, people get upset.
Yes.
People get upset.
Oh, I mean, Nestle definitely, don't they? I mean, that's it's a really difficult one, and you know, the boss of Toyota has just spoken about electric vehicles, which I'm very pro.
I've got an electric.
Have you? What have you got?
I've got a thing called a nice car.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, do you know a nice car?
Yeah, I know about that.
I really like it.
Wow.
But partly, I love the car, but they're so nice. The people who do it, they're just down here. They're just down here in bottom end of Ladbroke Grove.
Right.
But you know, one of our worries when we first got it was, well, what if it goes wrong? You know, you drive it in there. Look at it, service it under a 2-year warranty. It's just come out now.
Right.
But you know, nothing.
And has anything on? I mean, nothing.
No,
not much can go wrong.
Well, the windows jam. And
right. I see.
Actually,
so kind of basic
things go wrong.
mechanical things.
Basic.
Yeah.
But the drive of the car, no, nothing does go wrong.
No.
There's no moving part. Well, there's
one moving part, effectively, isn't there?
It's only 2 years, but I've not replaced anything on it.
Right. And it costs pennies to drive.
It costs fourpence a night to charge. And I mean, it'll lend you 40 miles, right?
Yeah.
But you know, it's quite nippy.
But zipping around London,
I don't know, anywhere around London, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I've now got a thing at work, so I park it if I'm going to take it out.
Right.
I mean, in fact, if I hadn't been seeing you, I'd have driven into town.
Right. Well, there's parking space around there with charging points.
And there is actually charging points, but I don't need that because I park here. But the big thing is you can park for free.
Yeah.
In Westminster, you park for free. So. And it's 4 hours, so you know, I mean, the number of times I got busted on a parking ticket because I was 5 minutes late.
Yes.
Well, you can't be unless you're over 4, and even then, they don't know when the hour started. So
I didn't know. You see, you've been a TV hero of mine for years, and you already drive an electric car.
I love it.
Now I've got no idea.
Right here.
I go right here. Fine. Good. I'd love to know what. I mean, I don't see how anyone can know, but where you think TV will go. I mean, who's going to know? I don't think anybody knows.
I don't think anybody does know, but I do think. Not to sound, as you say, like a complete old fart, but I think that I think this economic downturn hit the industry at a time when it was about to go through, when it was in the process of big change anyway.
Yeah.
And I think in a funny way, to me, it's almost like the miners' strike. You know, the mines were coming, the coal mining industry in this country was coming to an end. And then we had the strike. And that brought it to a much quicker end.
Yeah, yes.
And I think in a way what's happening here is not dissimilar. The thing, the broadcast television as we knew it was coming to an end, I think.
Right.
I mean, it'd certainly be so different that you wouldn't recognise it.
Yeah.
And what this economic downturn has done is hastened that on.
It was on its knees and it's given it a good kicking.
It's given it a good kicking. And I think when the money comes back, because it will, the economy will.
Yeah,
of course, the industry goes inside. But what I don't think you'll see is broadcast television as we used to know, paid for by spot advertising, or the license fee. Indeed, I think spot advertising won't ever be quite the same again, and the license fees kind of.
Do you think the license fee as well is on it?
I think it becomes more and more difficult to justify it when you can access the material through so many different ways. I think it'll be a terrible loss. I wish.
Because presumably at the moment, if you're 21 years old and you live in your first bedsit and you've got a laptop,
if you're 21 years old, you do not
know.
understand the concept of paying for music.
No.
You don't know. I mean, you can't explain to people why that's wrong or immoral or pirating. You can't explain to 80% of under 21-year-olds why watching movies for free is immoral and wrong.
Yes.
You can't. See, to you and I, it's absolutely the other black and white, isn't it? But you can't. And so why would it be any different with television? When I can watch, so I can sit in America. I can't watch Britain's Got Talent, but I can watch all the best bit in 1-minute clips that I'm paying nothing for.
Yeah.
Well, why would I pay $9.99? I mean, so we've gone across the Rubicon.
Yes. And you can't come back from that, can you?
I don't think
mystery.
you can. I don't think you put the genie back in the bottle. No. The big question is, who's going to pay the, millions of pounds that it costs to make a series of Britain's Got Talent?
Yeah.
If the advertisers are not paying for it anymore, and the folks watching it on YouTube are not paying for it because they never did.
Yes.
I don't know what that model is.
I suppose I was vaguely hoping you'd know.
No, and I don't think I talk to a lot of people about it a lot of the time.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, you're on the radio show.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I listen to it avidly.
Well, you were very kind and phoned out, but nobody knows the answer.
Right.
To that, and I don't know. Simon Cowell is very prescient about it and says, at some point...
He was extraordinary on that.
He really knows what he's talking about.
Fine boy, isn't he?
And he said, at some point, we're not going to give this away for free. Well, no, Simon, but what are you going to charge? 99p? I mean, a lot of them to make up the cost of
And then how
shows.
do you do it? Because, I mean, having a 16-year-old son is a brilliant test bed. Because I'd say, look, that's protected material.
Yep.
It's DRM'd. It's been paid for, like a film I've downloaded from iTunes. Can you copy that? And he kind of looks at me like, is like me saying, I've got a tissue here, can I blow my nose with it?
Yeah.
It's so bloody obvious.
I tell you, I went round to my daughter, the younger daughter, who works in theatre, and I remember going up to see her room there, and there's 7 other people, there's 7 rooms in this big old warehouse, converted rooms, and in the common room, so to speak, just like a university JCR, huge plasma screen with everything on it. So they've got a sling box, they've got the internet, all directly hooked up to the television. They can watch American TV as it goes out on the sling box. They can watch
presumably games as well, and all that
games,
stuff,
anything they want to watch, movies, whatever. And the concept that they would pay for anything other than the screen,
the actual screen,
completely.
Maybe that's the answer. Then you charge $1 million for the screen.
Well, of course, that's one of the things.
Which I think
in Europe, they are charging. There is a system, I think, either being talked about or already in place. When you buy a new television, there is a copyright fee in the television, which is then by some. But you see, how do you distribute that? I mean, and when you buy players, certainly there's a fee added on, for your rights to copy stuff.
Right. Wow.
But you know,
the trouble is with any of that technology now. There's always a workaround.
There's a workaround.
When there was the BBC on the Bakelite 9-inch black and white, which is what I had when I watched it. That's where you watched it. And then if you said it right, don't copy that. And you go, what do you mean? How else would you? Yeah. I mean, even the BBC couldn't copy it.
Well, the BBC, I mean, my dad was a BBC producer.
Right.
He made the show, and then somebody would say, hey, didn't something happen? And he said, I don't have no idea. You knew. I mean, it's gone.
Yeah. Yes, that is, Brilliant, though. Thank you so much for your time.
It's
really, really good fun.
Like now with technology, it's an interesting parallel because now the user has the power.
Yeah.
The record companies and the film companies still think they have it because the biggest thing they have not really come to grips with is that they don't have the power anymore.
Yeah.
The user has the power.